Hello folks, Kaz here from Blockhead UK. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about vertical scale for Micropolis. What do I mean by that? Well, as you may remember from my previous video, this is the size of a Micropolis car, just 2 plates tall. So we must remember this when we're talking about the height of the buildings that we're going to build. And in fact, Micropolis standard specifies that 1 brick high is roughly 9 feet. Now the practical upshot of that for me is that every floor I build pretty much consists of 1 plate and 1 brick. And if we continue to stack 1 plate and 1 brick on top of each other like this, we'll get something that resembles a building that's about the right scale for the cars and other things that are in the Micropolis square. So there we've got 3 floors. If you put that next to the car, that looks quite good. Just about the right proportions in terms of height. Now you might see some other micro scale buildings which are built somewhat like this. 1 plate for windows and another plate for the flooring. You can make some beautiful micro scale models to this scale, but when you put them next to a Micropolis car, they just look a little bit too small. So I tend to shy away from that particular size of scale, which is about 1 to 650, I believe. So for your average house or office or whatever, a brick and a plate per floor is a good rule of thumb. However, if you're building a large municipal type building, I don't know, something like a grand office or perhaps a factory or something like that, then you can get away with using 2 bricks worth per floor, something like that. And in fact I've done that on occasions where I felt that the building was grand enough to warrant a larger floor separation. And if you think about it, some large offices in any big city will have floors that are taller than your average house at home. So that's a little bit about vertical scale. Good rules of thumb to work to. So now we've talked about vertical scale, I'll now give you some insights in how I go about designing the shape of a building. Let's take these off for the moment. So the first thing I think about is the floor plan. And sometimes the very basic thing I use is just a plate like this. It's best to have lots and lots of these available. So what could you do? Well, the most boring thing you could probably do is plonk them in the middle of the square and start building up from there. However, what happens if you offset them by a couple of studs? Things start to look a little bit more interesting then. And if you've got enough to have a couple more set down, then you could do maybe 3 like this, or move it to there, and each angle that you can add around that base plate to take it from the boring square will give some more interest to your building. If you've got something other than just these rectangular plates in any quantity, you can do other more interesting things as well. So how about we have a rectangle here, and then use one of these wing plates perhaps. Add that there, move it forwards perhaps, there we go, and then add another wing plate here. Now if you repeat that shape on each floor, all of a sudden you've got a really interesting diagonal to 2 sides of the building there, and even if you just build up the bricks in between with regular 1x2 bricks like this, across the joins, etc., you'll still end up with some interesting shapes, I think. And I've done that on a few of my buildings, so that, let's see what it looks like here. What I mean is putting it like that. You've got that diagonal with balconies, if you like, even though the bricks themselves form a more sharply defined square edge. So that's something to think about. And indeed, my last Micropolis video for Lancaster Court, I was lucky enough to find lots of these wing plates in the pick-a-brick wall. So I grabbed a handful, and that's how I ended up with the balconies at the sides. You don't always have to have such large balconies, of course. If you've got something that is a little bit more, a little bit smaller than we do here, go for something symmetrical. Asymmetry is good, but symmetrical is good as well. And again, just put the bricks along here so that they zigzag as a what's the word? Just put the bricks along here so that they zigzag like that. And whilst this is quite a hard edge, you've got the softening of the edge with that diagonal as well, particularly as you build up the floors. So that's a really good technique. However, what to do to make your building interesting if you've only got plates like this? Well, there's still plenty you can do. Let's take these off and remove these wings here. And let's see what we can do with just one of these rectangles. The next episode of this Micropolis tutorial series, I will show you some ideas for interesting window techniques, but that's all for this one. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel so you can see new content when it is released.